everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Love Soul Connection podcast. This is where we get real about all things love, connection, sex, intimacy, and everything that goes on behind the scenes of growing up. Today's topic: hormones. Yep, those mysterious little chemicals running the show on our mood swings, energy levels, and even the way we connect with others. So, you know how sometimes you're happily munching away on a sandwich, feeling all good, and suddenly, boom, you're annoyed because the tomato slice is too thick. Yeah, that's probably hormones doing their thing. But seriously, understanding hormones can make such a difference. They play a huge role in how we feel, how we act, and even how we connect with the people around us. So today, we are breaking it down in a way that won't feel like a science class. Alright, so let's start with the basics. What are hormones? Think of them as little chemical messengers running around in your body and telling different parts what to do. They are responsible for things like growth, sleep, stress responses, and emotions. Basically, they are like those annoying group chat notifications that keep popping up whether you're ready for them or not. For young people, especially during teenage years, some hormones get pretty hyped up, and that can be a wild ride. You're dealing with puberty, which means a surge in hormones like estrogen and testosterone, which not only affect physical changes but also your feelings and energy levels. That's why one minute you might feel on top of the world, and the next you're feeling super low. It's kind of like life's emotional roller coaster, and hormones are behind the wheel. Let's say it's exam week. You're super stressed, right? That's cortisol, the stress hormone, cranking up. Or maybe you're feeling suddenly extra self conscious and don't even want to look in the mirror. That's partly hormones too. They are not the whole story, but they are definitely influencing how you react and feel. Think of hormones as that friend who sends random messages at 2 a.m., sometimes amazing, sometimes dramatic, and sometimes just plain confusing. So let's look at a few of the main players here. Those little messengers control a lot of how you feel. Serotonin, which is often called the happy hormone. When serotonin levels are up, you feel calm and content. But when it dips, especially during stressful times, that's when you may feel down or anxious. Dopamine. This one is like your body's personal cheerleader. It's released when you're doing something fun or rewarding, giving you that on top of the world feeling. Low dopamine can lead to feeling bored or unmotivated. Estrogen and testosterone. Estrogen is a big player for anyone going through puberty or menstruation, which is why it's often linked to mood swings or those pre period feels. Testosterone, on the other hand, doesn't just affect physical growth, but can also trigger emotions, especially in teenage guys who may feel a surge of aggression or extra energy flowing through their body. Let's get real for a second. Imagine this: it's the day before a big test. You have barely slept, your mind is racing, and you feel all over the place emotionally. That's cortisol, your stress hormone, coming in hot. Or You've been looking forward to a party and you're suddenly super pumped and confident. That's probably a dopamine boost kicking in, helping you feel more social and energized. Let's talk about a common one for teens with periods, the pre period mood swings. You're irritated at the smallest things. You're craving snacks like your life depends on it. And that's estrogen and progesterone doing their thing. Sound familiar? All of us have gone through this. Guys might experience testosterone driven mood spikes where you feel a bit intense. One moment you're fine, and the next, something small gets on your nerves. You're not alone. That's testosterone making an entrance. So, what can you do about these hormonal shifts? Here are a few ways to make things easier on yourself. First, practice self care. Try some deep breathing or even just go for a walk. Getting moving and breathing deeply helps to settle things down, reducing the stress hormone and giving you some headspace. Physical activity always works. Exercise isn't just for fitness, it's also for mental balance. Physical activity helps to boost dopamine and serotonin, which naturally lift your mood. Even a short walk can make a difference. The third thing that you can do is stay social. Talking openly about how you're feeling with friends or family members can take the weight off your shoulders. Sometimes just sharing that you're feeling low or hyped up can make the emotions feel less overwhelming. Also, focus on what's going right. It can help to focus on positive stuff even on rough days. So take a second to write down or think about one thing that you enjoyed that day. Shifting your focus can make a surprising difference. So remember, this hormonal stuff is part of growing up, but it doesn't have to rule your life. Taking small actions to care for yourself and finding healthy ways to cope makes it all a little smoother. So here's a question. Ever feel super tired in the middle of the day but get a random burst of energy late at night? Or maybe you're trying to focus on schoolwork and suddenly it's like someone hit the snooze button on your brain. Well, you can thank your hormones for some of that. Let's break down what's going on. Hormones like cortisol are partly responsible for keeping us alert. They are high in the morning and they help you to wake up. But by mid afternoon, they naturally dip, giving you that familiar afternoon slump. Then there is melatonin, which starts to rise in the evening to help you to wind down. But sometimes your energy peaks right as it kicks in. It's like your body didn't get the memo about bedtime. Let me share some more examples. Picture this. It's about 2:30 p.m. You're in the middle of a class and suddenly everything feels like it's moving in slow motion. You're fighting to keep your eyes open, staring at the clock, wondering how it's only 2:35 p.m. That's your cortisol winding down for the day, giving you that slump that feels almost impossible to fight. Or maybe it's the opposite. You are exhausted all day, but as soon as it's time for bed, bam, you feel totally awake and suddenly inspired to tackle that project you've been putting off. Hormones like dopamine and serotonin also play a role here, influencing your focus and motivation at unexpected times. All right, so how do you handle this roller coaster? Here are some simple tricks to keep your energy more balanced and manageable. One of the best ways to fight that afternoon slump is to get up and move. A quick walk, A few minutes of stretching or even just a change of scenery can do wonders to re energize your body and mind. Plus, moving around actually releases endorphins, which make you feel more alert. The second important thing is hydrate. Water might seem like a boring solution, but dehydration is one of the biggest reasons for feeling tired. Keep a water bottle nearby, and when that slump starts hitting, take a few sips to help boost your energy. What you eat can also affect your energy more than you think. High sugar snacks give you a quick spike of energy but leave you crashing soon after. Try balanced snacks like nuts, fruits, or a small yogurt, something that gives you a steady release of energy rather than a short lived sugar high. And then, of course, there is sleep. It's tempting to pull a late night study session or scroll through social media, but your hormones respond to a regular sleep schedule. The more consistent you are with when you go to bed and wake up, the more balanced your energy will be during the day. So, yeah, it's normal to feel these highs and lows, but learning a few tricks to work with your body instead of fighting against it can make a big difference. With a little practice, you can manage those energy dips and peaks and still make it through the day without needing a nap under your desk. Now let's talk about something that we all experience. Those moments where you suddenly get super annoyed with a friend or you're just way more sensitive than usual about something that a family member says. And you're left thinking, why am I like this today? Well, a big part of that could be your hormones acting up again. Here's the deal: hormones like testosterone, estrogen, dopamine, and serotonin don't just affect your body and mood, they can directly impact how you interact with the people around you. When your hormones are fluctuating, you might find yourself more impulsive, more sensitive, or even more reactive than usual. This is especially true during puberty, which is a time when your hormones are in overdrive, trying to find a balance in your body. Let's paint a picture here. You're hanging out with your friends, everything seems fine, and then someone says something small. Maybe they borrowed your pen without asking, or they said something offhand. Suddenly, you feel this wave of irritation or frustration that feels bigger than the situation calls for. It's not really about the pen, it's about how your hormones are making you more sensitive than usual. Sometimes that's just what hormones do. They turn small things into big feelings. Or maybe you're having a family dinner and something your sibling says makes you tear up, even though it's really not a big deal. Suddenly you're thinking, why am I crying? I don't even know why I feel so emotional. This could be estrogen or progesterone at play, making you more sensitive to certain situations, especially around certain times of the month. Now, here's where things get interesting. Hormones are not just an excuse for acting all over the place, but knowing how to handle your emotional roller coaster is key. Communication is the best way to deal with these hormonal shifts in relationships, especially when you start feeling yourself getting upset or overly sensitive. It's about taking a breath before reacting. So, here are three tips to manage your hormonal reactions. First, when you start feeling triggered or overly emotional, pause and ask yourself, is this me or is this my hormones talking? Sometimes just identifying that it might be hormonal can help you to get some distance from the emotion and let you react in a more controlled way. So, the first thing is recognize your emotions. The second tip is express yourself calmly. If you're feeling overwhelmed by your emotions, don't let them control how you communicate. Instead of snapping or holding everything in, try to express your feelings in a calm, non accusatory way. For example, instead of saying, "You always annoy me," try saying, "I'm feeling frustrated right now and I'm not sure why. Can we talk about it?" This can help to keep the conversation open and not let the hormones take over. The third tip is that set your boundaries. If you're feeling overly sensitive or irritable, don't be afraid to set some boundaries. You have every right to tell people, "I'm not in the best headspace right now. So, can we talk about this later?" It's okay to protect your peace. Setting personal boundaries is crucial when you feel emotionally overwhelmed, and it's a great way to avoid unnecessary conflicts. Let's break it down with another example. Imagine you're in a group chat with your friends and someone sends a message that feels kind of rude. Normally, you would laugh it off, but today your hormones are on high alert and suddenly you feel hurt or offended. Rather than firing off a quick response, take a deep breath. Give yourself time to cool down before deciding if it's really something worth addressing. Or maybe it's a romantic relationship and your boyfriend says something that you know he didn't mean in a bad way, but for some reason you feel hurt or upset. This could be due to a hormone shift, making you more sensitive to certain things. Before reacting, take a moment to assess how you feel. Is this reaction really about the situation or is it something hormonal? That awareness can help you to avoid saying things that you don't mean. At the end of the day, it's important to remember that our hormones don't define us, but they do influence how we interact with the world and the people around us. When you know how your hormones affect you, you can start to navigate your relationships in a more mindful way. Recognizing your emotional triggers, setting clear boundaries, and communicating calmly can all help you build stronger, more understanding relationships with friends, family, and romantic partners. Hormones can throw us for a loop, but with the right tools, we can keep them from controlling the way we relate to others. And hey, if you have a rough day where everything seems extra frustrating, don't beat yourself up. Hormones happen to the best of us. Just remember to breathe, communicate openly, and set those boundaries when you need them. Now, let's get into something that many people wonder about but might feel uncomfortable talking about: hormones and sexuality. You've probably heard of the hormonal drive, especially when it comes to puberty. And let's face it, puberty isn't just about growing taller or your voice is changing. It also brings a whole new level of curiosity and awareness about your body, your desires, and your attraction to others. That's all driven by hormones. Specifically, hormones like testosterone and estrogen play a huge part in your sexual development. Testosterone, which both boys and girls have, tends to increase during puberty, causing heightened sexual desire. Estrogen, on the other hand, is the hormone that helps with the development of female sexual characteristics. And when the levels rise, it can also affect how girls feel about intimacy and attraction. Let's take a real life example. Say you've started to notice that as you get older, you're beginning to feel more drawn to someone that you're close to. Maybe it's that weird, tingly feeling when they smile at you, or a sudden desire to get closer to them. This is totally normal, and it's often your hormones giving you a little nudge. These feelings are your body's way of signaling that it's time for you to start developing a deeper interest in romantic or sexual relationships. Or for guys, you might have experienced this before. Suddenly, you feel way more aware of certain girls or become more focused on looking a certain way or gaining attention. It's like one day you wake up and your body feels like it's sending a whole different set of messages. Yep, that's testosterone in action. It's not just a phase, it's hormones doing their thing. Desire and attraction are part of growing up, and hormones are the driving force behind it all. But here's the thing, just because your body is telling you it feels something, it doesn't mean that you have to act on it immediately or that you should follow through on every impulse. The key here is understanding your desires and acting from a place of respect for yourself and others. Sometimes hormones can make us feel like we have to act on our desires right away, but that's where it's important to understand and honor your emotional boundaries. For example, if you feel attracted to someone but aren't ready to explore that part of your sexuality yet, that's perfectly fine. Just because hormones are pushing for it doesn't mean that you have to do anything that you're not comfortable with. So, how do you manage all these intense feelings and hormonal shifts? Let's break it down a bit. First thing, be patient with yourself. Don't rush anything. Whether you're dealing with desire, curiosity, or attraction, take your time. There's no right time to explore these feelings. If you're unsure, talk to someone that you trust, whether it is a friend or a parent or a teacher, about how you're feeling. It's normal to have a mix of excitement and confusion. The second thing is to remember that mutual respect is crucial in all relationships, especially the romantic ones. Just because someone else is interested doesn't mean you have to feel obligated to reciprocate. Hormones can make us feel more driven, but that doesn't mean we should pressure others or ourselves into things that we are not ready for. And the third thing that you can do is communicate. If you are entering a romantic or sexual relationship, communication is your best friend. Talk openly with your partner about what feels good, what doesn't, and what you're comfortable with. Hormones will push for closeness, but emotional maturity and respect should guide these decisions. Consent, boundaries, and trust should always be part of the picture. Let's take an example of a couple who's figuring this all out. Let's say two teenagers are in a relationship and one feels ready to move things forward physically, but the other isn't quite there yet. Hormones may be making one person feel like it's time, but the other might still be figuring out what they want. The important point here, communication and patience. It's important to have a conversation about each other's boundaries and desires. Hormones will urge you to act quickly, but understanding, patience, and mutual respect will help to guide your actions in a healthy way. Hormones and sexuality are a part of growing up, and it's totally natural to have curiosity, attraction, and desire during puberty. But remember, those feelings don't have to be rushed or forced into action. It's all about understanding yourself, respecting your boundaries, and communicating openly. Hormones might be strong, but your ability to make decisions based on what feels right for you is even stronger. So, as your body continues to change, and you start to understand more about your sexuality, just keep in mind that this journey is yours and you get to navigate it at your own pace. Be kind to yourself and others, and don't forget, your hormones don't define your choices. You do that. Okay, so let's quickly wrap everything up. Today we covered how hormones are like the secret drivers behind a lot of what you're feeling: your mood, your energy, your social interactions, and yes, even your sexuality. These hormonal shifts are a natural part of growing up, but understanding them gives you the power to take control and make informed, respectful choices for yourself and your relationships. We talked about how hormones can cause those emotional ups and downs, mood swings, and how they affect your energy levels and motivation. You're not alone if you feel like a burst of energy at 10 p.m. or crash at 3 p.m. That's just your body doing its thing. We also talked about how hormones impact your relationships, making you more sensitive, more impulsive, or more emotionally invested. And of course, we explored the way hormones play a role in your desires, your attractions, and how important it is to take things at your own pace, communicate openly, and respect your boundaries and the boundaries of others. So, hormones can be a lot to handle sometimes, but they are not your enemy. They are part of growing up. And with the right understanding, you can navigate these changes with confidence and ease. It's totally okay to not have everything figured out. But remember, your journey is your own. Your feelings are valid, and it's important to listen to your body, your heart, and your mind. You don't need to rush through puberty or these new feelings. Take your time, and whenever you're feeling confused, overwhelmed, or unsure about anything, just know that it's completely normal and there's always someone that you can talk to about it. Whether it's a parent, a friend, or even someone like a coach or counselor, there's no shame in asking questions and seeking support. As we close out today's episode, I challenge you to take a moment and reflect. How have you noticed your hormones affecting your mood, energy, and relationships? Are there any areas where you've been feeling particularly sensitive or energized? And most importantly, how do you want to start embracing these changes moving forward? If something in this episode resonates with you, or if you know someone who might benefit from hearing it, share it with them. We're all in this together, and sometimes just talking about these things openly can make all the difference. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to hit that follow button and subscribe to the Love Soul Connection podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts so you never miss on any future episodes. And hey, if you have any thoughts, feedback, or questions, feel free to leave a comment or send a message. I would love to hear from you. Remember, hormones are just part of the journey. So embrace them, learn from them, and above all, embrace yourself. Until next time, take care of yourself.